I guess my niche is the storytime queen, and it didn't really start out that way. It's just over the number of years, I think that's kind of the niche that I am. Like, I do different videos, but for me, the heart of my videos is just telling my story, imparting a bit of wisdom, and hopefully entertaining at the same time. So I was thinking of this story time, and I think it's probably quite apt over Christmas because I was thinking about all the people that I've literally chatted to over Christmas, like hoping that something would work. I just don't do dating apps at Christmas because it's just full of time wasters. So let's start this story time. This happened to me quite a while ago. I don't want to say how many years, maybe 10 years ago. This is not a fresh story, this is an old story. And I had the misfortune of chatting to someone online for, it must have been a good year, and they wouldn't meet up with me. And yeah, if you've watched my videos before, I was in good shape. There was nothing wrong with me. But this man would physically not meet me. When you listen to something like that, you think, girl, what are you doing? And yeah, like now I'm like, yes, what was I doing? The thing is, like most relationships, it just doesn't start like that. It started off with chatting, etc. And then we'd get to that point of, I'd say, do you want to meet up? And then he'd say no. This was in my days where I would go on Plenty of Fish. And God, there were, not to stereotype, but there were some right weirdos on Plenty of Fish. And a year seems a long time to be talking to someone. But the fact is, it didn't start off with me thinking, oh, this will go on for a year. It started off like most people, chatting to someone. You chat to someone, you get to that point where you've been talking for a few weeks or whatever, and you say, do you want to go out on a date? And for whatever reason, he would say no. And it'd always end up with this kind of argument where I would be like, well, if you're not going to meet up with me, I'll stop talking to you. And then we wouldn't talk. And then, of course, what would happen? A month or so later, I'd fall back into the same pattern of being lonely and then reach out again. And then we'd start talking again. This is why this dynamic lasted over possibly a year. And this person became someone that I would always talk to. And even to this day, I have absolutely no idea why this person kept talking to me, because he had absolutely no interest in meeting with me, but he would keep talking to me. And sometimes we'd talk for maybe like a few hours a night. And it was such a weird dynamic where I would talk about other people I was chatting to, and it was like, to this day I don't really know what it was. Was it a friendship? Was it romantic? I don't really know, because it wasn't really even sexual in nature. It was almost as if he was like the fallback guy who I would like talk to. And the thing is, I don't know why he would entertain that, because he was older than me. And this is what I'm talking about more and more in my videos, is this dynamic of older men preying on younger women, which I just in itself, I find just disgusting now. Like, the older I get, and I think of half of the traumas that I've been through have been because I have been young and naive, and these are older men that have manipulated me. And just the older I get, the more it just makes me feel uncomfortable. And we've all seen that chart online of Leonardo DiCaprio where he gets older, yet the woman that he wants stays the same, like in their 20s. It is sadly true, is that a man at 25 will want to date a 20-year-old. A man at 30 will want to date a 20-year-old. A man at 35 will want to date a 20-year-old. I mean, even a man at 40, there are some people out there at 40 going around dating 20-year-olds. And there's literally nothing we can do about it, because men have their preferences. For whatever reason, this man would just keep talking to me. This is why I always say to you to get rid quick. To get rid quick of people that are not taking you out on dates, are not asking you out, are not masculine, are not driven, are not pursuing you being a man. because you'll get stuck in these dynamics that I got stuck in when I was younger, where I would talk to people as an emotional support system. And of course, over time, women develop feelings for these people they're talking. And not specifically that man, but sometimes in the past, I've thought about times where I've generally thought I was in love with people that I would be communicating with online, because my feelings were so deep for them, and you feel that barrier come down, and you almost feel like you're emotionally connected to that person, when in reality you're not. Unless you're physically there, you're not connected to someone. It's not real. That's sadly what I had to understand, like too late really, is that these online dynamics were not real relationships. And I would waste months and months of my time on end in these kind of quasi relationships where I would develop real feelings for people and they didn't feel the same, because for them I was someone that they would reply to maybe when they're at work or when they were bored, and they had no real intention of taking me out on a date. So I ended up in this situation where I was talking to this person on and off for like a good full-on year, and it became toxic because it would be me getting really aggressive with him because he wouldn't meet me and he wouldn't FaceTime me. And it got to the point where I started to think that this person generally was not who he said he was. And I started to think this person is a catfish. And in the end, it must have been after a good year, just stopped communicating to him for good. And he was just a loser, basically. You could argue I was a loser because I was entertaining it, but he was a loser too because he was chatting to someone online, not being a man and asking them out on a date. He was literally just chatting to someone because he had his own issues. He probably didn't have his own social life. He probably didn't have a lot going on in his life. And I have a sneaky suspicion he'll probably find my channel at some point, because people usually do, because my Instagram tends to fucking link everyone up that I've ever spoken to in my whole life. So he probably will find this channel at some point. And yeah, this video's about you because you are a loser. You just were a fucking loser, just on Plenty of Fish for like years and years on Plenty of Fish, chatting to random women, not asking them out on a date. If people like say to me in the comments, like, what is a beta male? That for me is a definition of a beta male. It's not about money, it's not about status. For me, it's a beta male is someone that doesn't follow through on their actions. It's someone that won't ask women out on dates. They won't put themselves out there. That for me is a beta male. For me, an alpha male is someone that is driven. They don't even have to be, really financially successful. It's just someone that is driven, someone that has something they care about, and someone that does have the balls to ask a woman out on a date. That for me is an alpha male right there. This guy was a beta, and he probably still is a beta. He will die a beta. God knows what he's doing now. He's probably still on Plenty of Fish with the same old photos, to be honest. But there is a twist to the story. So this person didn't meet up with me, didn't want to meet up with me. And through a stroke of fate, whatever it was, I accidentally bumped into him at the station, and I walked past him, but I knew it was him, and we had that awkward moment where I know it's him, and he knows it's me, and we lock eyes, we don't say anything, and we just walk on by. And in that moment, I was like, thank you, universe. Thank you, universe, for ending that cycle, because he was honestly a runt of a man. He was just this weedy little man who'd made out he looked completely different from his photos, and he was just hunched over like this. And I just thought, like, why? Why did you waste so much time of your life, of your young life, talking to this man? And in the end, it said more about me, about where I was in my life, than where he was in his life. It was more about me. We can't tie into this victim narrative about everything's about the man. Everything's about the man being the bad man. At the end of the day, I had to take some responsibility. And the fact was that I kept talking to this man. It was my fault. I kept talking to this man. Yes, he was a weird, creepy loser, but I kept talking to him because I wasn't happy in my own life. And that's what it came down to. And the universe just completed the cycle of, we had this serendipitous moment where we actually met. And I realised that he was just all bravado online. He was just this weedy little man, like I said. And it was all just... He was just... I don't know. I don't mean to be mean, but even the way he walked was like creepy. It was such a weird experience. It was such a weird thing to go through. But I'm glad we did have that weird experience, like the stroke of fate where we actually met after about 2 years. Because by that point, I'd actually grown as a person and I was completely different, and I saw him for what he was. And I just thought, this is such a weird experience and such a weird way for it to go. Like just meeting randomly in a big city, just having that sliding doors moment of whoosh, we see each other. For me, that lesson was just not to keep talking to people online for ages, not to enter into these dynamics where I feel that I know people online. And then from that moment, I developed the strategy that I do now, that if the man doesn't ask me out within a week, I cut my losses and move on. Because for me, a man shows interest within that first week. Anything after that first week, he's just wasting your time. He's a player. He has a girlfriend. He's using you. He's seeing other women. He's not shy. These shy men need to get the fuck out. I'm sorry. Like, shy men need to go. We need strong, masculine men that ask women out on dates. Enough of the shy men. Go in the bin. Yeah, Merry Christmas. So yeah, that's Vlogmas Day 1 wrapped up, my little story time of how I ended up chatting to someone online for a year. Never met him until fate put us in the path of meeting each other a couple of years later. What a weird story. See you soon for more Vlogmas. See you later.